What's up, everybody? Nick Powills, publisher of 1851franchise.com. We're talking about another wellness franchise today, Facialworks, and we'll figure out what is their why you, why now, coming up next. All right, Jason, I start the same way, but it creates context. What is your franchise story? How did you accidentally fall into franchising?
I'm going to guess like a lot of people, we didn't start a company with the idea of franchising, didn't come from the space, didn't really know much about franchising. And we just started a company, and the plan was always to expand corporate locations, which is what we did. And then along the way, we kept getting people going, "Hey, are you guys a franchise? I'd love to franchise this." Emails from, as far away as the Middle East, Europe, all over the place, all over America, people emailing us going like, "Are you guys going to franchise? Can I franchise this?" So at a certain point of, tons of people asking you, you kind of go, okay, well, maybe we should actually think about this. So talk to some people in the space, and ultimately decided, yeah, we should probably explore this as an option for growth.
So you go through the process. Now, obviously, your story is very aligned with others, or the customer base, or someone saying, become a franchise. Whether those folks are qualified or not, that's to be determined. But you now go through the process of becoming a franchise. What was that like? I've looked at your background. Obviously, you're a study in business. When you started exploring what franchising was, what excited you? What surprised you? What concerned you?
Oh, yeah. I would say a lot on both those fronts, right? I think the exciting part was the ability to scale faster using the power of entrepreneurs all over the country, right? There's incredible entrepreneurs and business people all over the country. Even if they've never owned their own companies, they're executives at big firms, whatever it is. So you think about, leveraging those people and their ability to make good decisions and be successful in business. And we compare that to the process that you go through to open a corporate location, which is very time consuming, can be very slow. It's very hard for a smaller team to take on multiple projects at once, very expensive. And we just said, this is potentially a way to really accelerate the growth of the whole brand, which for us is important, right? It's not just about corporate stores, it's about growing the whole brand. We also have our Facialworks product line. So that was something that we considered as well. So it is an ability for us to grow faster. The concern was just, will someone else like love this as much as we love it? Will they put the passion into it, the hard work? The way we design the treatments, they're kind of no downtime treatments. So as opposed to like a med spa, there's, let's say less risk of seriously injuring someone. Mm-hmm. But that's always a concern that you have. Are they going to, do something wrong with one of our machines and hurt someone, stuff like that. But those are the kind of the ups and downs that we weighed when we thought about doing this.
All right. And so you officially became a franchise when?
Pretty much late Q3 last year. We got our California approval and barely just kind of tested the waters towards the end of 2023. Really just marketed kind of to our own database, didn't really go out and market to anyone outside of that.
Yeah.
Got a lot of great feedback. And actually have about 90 leads that we generated just from our existing database. And now we're starting to take the next level, which is going out and starting to run some ads to non-Facialworks clients. Have you awarded your first franchise yet? No, we're essentially making some pretty heavy adjustments to our FDD. We've got, like I said, quite a few people who are in the pipeline, have gone through the initial kind of qualification stages and everything. So we have a pretty solid pipeline. I think the feedback from both our franchise advisors as well as some of the feedback we got from those 90 people is that they wanted to see a little bit more disclosure around item 19, for example. They wanted a little bit more clarification on some of the costs associated with opening a store. Yeah. So we're hopefully early here in 2024, we're going to release a heavily updated FDD, which will then be the one that people can sign. We're kind of holding people off until we have this updated FDD.
How many corporate locations do you have?
4.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, from if I'm in your shoes for a second, and I think through going through the process of becoming a franchisor, I hear all these people are knocking on my door saying, "I want to buy you." Then you're like, "Okay, let's go." And they're like, "Well, wait a second, we need more information." In my viewpoint, finding the ideal candidate early on ends up being such a critical component of what's going to happen in the history of your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
If a buyer is coming to the table, and I might be in the minority camp on this viewpoint, but you have 4 corporate locations. Proof is already in that. You've been doing it for 10 years. Like, if you have to disclose what your potential earnings are, that might be the wrong candidate, because the reality is that those sales were built over you engineering a business over a long period of time.
Right.
And so if that candidate comes in with false expectations because you've been advised to beef up your item 19, then all of a sudden you have a bad franchisee on your hands versus someone that is optimal. So for unsolicited advice, I would say just keep the guard up when it relates to that. And look, the cost of build out, I've always said this, three units is what I would qualify a candidate for. Not that I'm going to sell you 3 on day one. I just want you to be able to financially afford 3 so that you get the first one open, you have enough for a rainy day, and you got enough to scale. Like, that's how you build the next 4 unit franchisee, because you're trying to duplicate what you've done from a franchise standpoint to get into the space. So when it comes to points of differentiation, because obviously you talk about product and equipment and process, was that part of the blueprint that had to get defined? Because there's a million places that a human can go spend money on wellness. And if you search for wellness franchises, it's probably the hottest new category, even though it's been around forever. For sure. That's appeared. So what's the clear points of differentiation?
Yeah, I think there's a couple big ones. Without getting into some of the back end stuff that we do that's very different. We're kind of the only place that's really built out, at least that I'm aware of, like the full bar concept, which is a big selling point, right? There are places that they'll have kind of express facials. There's also places that have more traditional room treatments where they're doing hydrofacial, dermaplaning, etc. But I think we're still, to this day, that I've seen, the company who really puts the most amount into building that luxury environment, which is sometimes can be the issue, right? Our build out is fairly expensive because we do build out like a full bar, right? And it's very well done. The environment looks stunning and chic, and there is some cost associated with that. But having that, I think the amount of training we do, the fact that we did develop our own product line, which was really engineered to make the services as affordable as possible, and still deliver results. That's something that I don't think many places have yet. They may have, private labeled a couple products, but we've actually gone out and my partner formulates the products. That's what she does. She's an esthetician for years, product nerd, ingredient nerd. She goes to these like crazy science classes at UCLA every year and learns all the latest trends and ingredients and everything, and brings it and puts it into our products. So those are some of the big points. I mean, I think some of the back end stuff that's probably less interesting that we do is very unique and different in the industry and drives revenue growth.
Of these 90 leads, you said I hit the customer database. Is that where the bulk of them have come from because they have some sort of relationship with the brand?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've gotten now a few more just from dabbling in advertising, not spending much. Yeah. But that first 90 just came from sending some emails out to our clients and saying like, "Hey, we're franchising now." Also going back and digging up some of those people who'd emailed us, even if it was 7-8 years ago. And I think most of them were probably at that point not interested anymore. But just going back and emailing those people. But the majority are just people who are our clients. In 10 years, you can imagine you have a lot of people who become clients, members, and then one day they move away. So, we've got people in Idaho and Texas and, all over the place.
You're still in its infancy, but did you, based on everything that you've told me, when you decided, or when you first got approved in California and said, okay, we're going to send out this database blast, was your expectation that franchisee 1 would not be overly challenging going in with all the information that you had?
Not necessarily overly challenging. I did think that there would be, I thought the process would move a little bit faster, but I think that was also just being a little bit naive about how long it takes to go through the process of sending someone an FDD, waiting, answering all their questions. And then I think we got a lot of people down the line, and then you got to get people into a cycle where they're like almost there, and you got to really be able to bring them over the line. And I think that's where, answering some of those questions about, well, how much am I actually going to make is tough, right? I think that's a hard conversation to have because you can only say so much. And our franchise development team is doing, I think, an admirable job trying to answer those questions. And, certainly as you said, when you have 4 locations, and we're in like some of the top malls and shopping centers in Orange County, which you just can't get into if you're not making money, right? Like they just won't accept you. So there's, like you said, the proof's kind of in the pudding, but it's different when it's your money that you have to invest into the company. So that's kind of where we're at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it probably comes down to the candidate profile. I mean, we did some work with a primarily facial wellness brand, and the interesting indicator on early indicators was the customer base was fine. Some customers could certainly afford to buy a franchise. And that is pathway of least resistance. But when you start getting in front of business operators that can say, skip a step here and say, yeah, you're not going to be in these top malls unless you're actually producing it. This is how business works. Yeah. Now all of a sudden you're selling to a different caliber. I will say, and you fall under a brand that everybody has the same trap. You go to your franchise site, it goes, buy my franchise. Mm-hmm. And all the questions you just went through are educational pieces that the buyer doesn't understand how franchising works. Even take how much you can make. Like we could disclose all day long what this looks like, but you're like, look, I'm the CEO of this company and I'm putting in my time every day and I've earned a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over time. Mm-hmm. Me making a decision is much different than you making a decision. So you might not make as much. Also, you're going to pay royalty and you're going to have technology fees and everything else. And so, but very few are taking the time to educate the buyer on what franchising is or skipping the step and going to buy my franchise. And now I think you're seeing that as an obstacle. Like if I were you, I would build more material to educate your buyers because you give them the education similar to what you would do with your staff on the training. Train them on what franchising is, then give them the opportunity to buy in. It might change the direction. Yeah, so great. How has your dream for 2024 changed, or has it? And what did success look like at the end of this year?
I wouldn't say the dream has changed. I think we have the same expectations we had a year ago. I think we were hoping that we'd have a couple signups by this point, but we have very good advisors in place, so I think gave us a pretty good idea that it might take 4 to 6 months to land our first one. Mm-hmm. So we're right at like 4 months roughly right now. So I don't think we're far off from where we should be, and we have a solid pipeline. So I think we're right on track. I think it's now just making the necessary changes to the FDD to beef it up, increase, not just on the Edimine team, but a disclosure all the way around. And then we should be in good shape. I think my team has, they have a aggressive target for 2024 and how many they want to sell. I hope they hit that. But I'm even if it's half what they are hoping to do, I think that's a pretty solid year.
It's great. Yeah. So let's just say candidates watch this to this point. Anything else you want them to know about the business opportunity?
I think if you're in the beauty space and you love skincare and you love facials, this is a really, I say this as someone who doesn't, until I met my wife and got into this, never really even thought of getting a facial. And now being on the other side of it, the business that collectively we've all built is really something special and unique in the space. And I hear this from our clients, right? This isn't just me saying this. I hear this from our staff. I hear it from our clients. It's really something unique. It is not something that is just another, skincare place, another facial place. It's totally different. The way we do everything, the way everything from the products and the services are intertwined together, the whole experience, the way it's thought out, even to the amount of time we spend on treatments. It's all thought out so well. It's completely different in the space. And I definitely encourage you, if you're looking at franchising in the beauty space, to take a look at what we're doing.
I love it. Look, as an outsider, I think the thing that I noticed that you nailed, and this comes down to some of the things that you're going to be unapologetic with when it comes to build out, is I think you nailed brand. And oftentimes when brand is nailed, that buys more time to figure out product and service. But based on our conversation, it sounds like you've already figured that out too. The next obstacle is getting the first franchisee in. But I would make sure that first franchisee, like, be protective of your club. Make sure they're a rock star and that they want to scale. You get that first one in that is like, yep, here's my plan to build 4 because I want to identify your pathway and then I want to duplicate it. I think you got the foundational pieces down, and that's where you'll have the climb that you expect. So looking forward to seeing where the story goes. Looks like you've done a lot of good things, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck as you hit the ground running and try to get this first franchise.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, for Jason, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.